Cash rules everything around me. Green, get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, yo.
All right, welcome to Green for All Crowdfunding 101 webinar. So excited that you've joined us. I want to thank everybody who is tuned in today. We have some of the brightest minds in crowdfunding here to share their wisdom with us, and we're so thrilled for that. Before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about Green for All and talk a little bit about my experience with crowdfunding, and then we will go to our panel of experts. I'll just say it from the top, we're excited to have some question and answer with folks, and although we couldn't have all few hundred of us join the Hangout, because that would be really awkward on a small laptop screen, we would like to engage with you via questions. You can send your questions to business@greenforall.org if you're using email, and you can also send them on Twitter via the hashtag GFA Crowdfund, hashtag GFA Crowdfund, or business@greenforall.org. So we will hear from all of our panelists, and please track and send your questions throughout, and then we'll have a pretty significant question and answer session at the end. And I think with you send your name and who you are with your question. It'll be great. So a little bit about Green for All. Green for All is based out of Oakland, California. It was founded 5 years ago by Van Jones. Our mission is to help to develop an inclusive green economy strong enough to lift people out of poverty. And we do that in a number of ways. We work on policy at the local, state, and national level. We provide technical assistance for programs that are creating jobs in the green sectors, and also do a lot of work around technical support to ensure that the jobs that are created are good jobs. We also provide support to businesses and entrepreneurs that are trying to start businesses in green sectors. This presentation is part of that project. It's part of that piece of the work that we do working with businesses in our business engagement programs. And we also do a lot of work around movement building, working to support grassroots leaders all over the country, doing leadership development, creating tools and resources that community members can use to support their communities. And so that's some of what we can do. You can, of course, find out more on our website that you are watching this on, greenforall.org. And as we've, over the last 5 years, worked on our mission of developing an inclusive green economy, we've noticed a number of things, but one of those things is that, the green economy increasingly is being built at the local level, and that it's innovation and entrepreneurs across the country, innovators and entrepreneurs across the country are really building that. And I have some experience in trying to use crowdfunding for my work, and I was reflecting on that, and it brought me back to my small town where I grew up, which is Ferndale, California. And I was thinking about who are the people that support us for crowdfunding. And so for me, I think about when I grew up there. I was one of 3 black kids at my school, me and my 2 brothers, as it were. And although Ferndale, where I grew up, is an incredibly quaint and beautiful and just a wonderful place to grow up, there was, of course, the bullying and challenges that any kid faces. And for me, it took on this sort of a different tone because I was one of the few black kids there. And it was a little bit scary, growing up. I had these bullies that were around, and I was afraid, and I needed help. And luckily, I was blessed to have a lot of help in the form of my little crew of friends, like Turner and Jesse and my buddy Rodney, who was like 5'8" in 7th grade, and then that was as tall as he got. But he was huge in 7th grade, so that was helpful for us. And it came in the form of my parents' friends, like Turner's mom, Laura, who was always there to help me to understand that whatever I was going through had nothing to do with me, but it was having to do with these other folks, and that I was good, and that I was of value. And I share that because a few years back, I launched a project that required crowdfunding that we didn't have any money for. I had to reach out to the crowdfund. And I realized, as I thought about today's webinar, that the people that supported me back in 7th grade when I was getting bullied were the same people that supported my project 3 years ago. And I share that because I think there is a myth, especially as crowdfunding grows and there's sort of this sense that anything is possible, that there is this crowd that is ready to fund whatever you do. And I want to just say that that is not, I don't think, the case. That what I think is that there is a community that you are a part of that will support you. And crowdfunding provides a platform for them to express that support. And so when I think about the folks that I've supported through crowdfunding, it's the people that I've known, and it's the people that I believe in their vision and trust their vision, and I trust them and what they can do. And those are the people that I've supported. And when I think again of what are the similarities between the people I've supported, the other similarity is that they asked. They emailed me or they did a Facebook message and they asked me to support them. So those are the couple things that I wanted to share before we get started. So before we get to our first person, I would just ask you out there in YouTube land to just take a moment to think about the people in your life who will be supporting you. I invite you to close your eyes if you look and envision those people, and think about the people that have been there for you, because those are the people that these platforms will allow you to get your project going. And you may, perhaps your idea will spark something and it will go viral, as they say, but it will start with your community, and it will start with those people that have supported you through all the stages of your journey. And then envision asking them for money, because that's going to be critical, I have a feeling. I'm hoping that my experts will back me up on that. So with no further ado, I want to get started and introduce our first panelist. I will just introduce people as they come on. So all of our panelists, you guys wave, say hi to the people. And we're going to start right here in the West Coast with someone who I have the great pleasure of calling a friend. Her name is Kate Drain, and she is the Director of Market Development for Design and Technology at Indiegogo. Kate believes that the power of we, she believes in the power of we over me, and crowdfunding is a perfect gratification of this. In the fall of 2011, she and a team of amazing graduates from the Presidio School of Business ran a fundraising campaign for her small business, the Can Van. The Can Van is the most innovative mobile canning unit in the country, probably the world. In her role as the Director of Market Development and Design and Technology, she really helps Indiegogo to develop their market and really lead in this realm of crowdfunding. So Kate, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I will pass it over to you.
Yay, thanks Julian. Thanks everybody, it's really good to be here. I'm so excited to talk about crowdfunding with you all, and we have such an amazing panel. I'm happy to be a part of it. First off, I just wanted to say, I'm going to just to give an overview of what I'm going to talk about. First, what is crowdfunding? Why is it relevant to you? And then for what makes Indiegogo different. And then also throw in a few tips and tricks for success. And then at the end, after all of us have spoken, we'll have some more questions and answers. So first off, what is crowdfunding? I'm sure a lot of you know already, if you're already on this call, that you're interested. So crowdfunding is a way to reach out to your community and your community's community to turn your dreams into a reality. At the core of it, it's a pooling of funds from individuals who are passionate about a leader or an idea to make a difference $1 at a time. And oftentimes there's something that you get something in return, often a perk, what we call a perk. And through the process, you're enabling these passionate people to feel pride in participating with you and being part of something bigger than themselves and seeing the real results from that. And what I love about it is that you're engaging people, real people in your community, creating real change. So why is it relevant? Crowdfunding, and I would imagine that a lot of you who are watching this right now, that you're social entrepreneurs and social innovators and people who really want to make a difference in the world. And I know firsthand how hard it is for social innovators to get the seed capital that you need to get something new off the ground, as well as growth capital in order to make something successful. Like Julia mentioned, I actually run a small business called the Can Van. It's a mobile beer canning service for craft breweries here in the Bay Area. And we ran an Indiegogo campaign in the fall of 2011 because we're like, where are we going to get the money to start this business? And it was a really neat experience to get to. Not only did we receive money through crowdfunding, so I'll tell you a little story about how we got started. CanVan needed a ton of money to get off the ground, so we set a campaign, an Indiegogo campaign for $10,000. We reached $4,000 of that $10,000 goal, learned a lot, like not to put a $100 as one of your good learning. Got out of the investor found a platform, and she only invests in bougie enterprises owned by women, and we fit that very unique niche. And we're just very lucky that crowdfunding opened us up to serendipity that we would have never achieved on our own. And so, like a number of companies, we weren't VC fundable. We didn't have 1,000-time promise of returns, but we're still a viable business. And so what crowdfunding helps to answer is, how do you get access to capital? What's going to happen? And I really believe that Indiegogo can play a transformational role in that, and that's why I'm here. So Indiegogo is the world's trusted crowdfunding platform that empowers people to fund what matters to them. We're extremely committed to helping social innovators get the funding and support that you need to succeed. And just to give you a little story, social innovators are using Indiegogo every single day. And crowdfunding has benefits beyond just the fundraising part of it. For example, just using the CanVan that, again, we are featured in Fast Company, a small business out of California, 4 months before you're even operational. There's also a campaign called Who Gives a Crap, which is one of my favorites, not just because it's very punny, but because they had a really great story. They wanted to run essentially, it was a social business where they needed to raise money to start their first production run of toilet paper, and for for dollars raised for their business, they were also going to invest in their communities and into different charities. And through their campaign, they recognized that there was a huge PR ability with it, and so he sat on a toilet for as long as it would take for them to raise $50,000, and it was all live streamed, and it was amazing, and received press across the country, from Fast Company to Huffington Post to so many places that now took notice of this small company. So it's very clear that crowdfunding is real and working today. A lot of people ask how Indiegogo is different from Kickstarters or other competitors out there. And while Kickstarter is often awesome, there's 6 important distinctions, and especially for social innovators. One, that we allow many social innovators and are eligible, and because Indiegogo is a totally equal opportunity platform where anybody can raise money for anything. Indiegogo is also where there's no application process, so you can get started right away. Indiegogo, you can also have a flexible or fixed funding. So like the CanVan, we raised $4,000, but we were able to take that home minus the fee instead of having only if you meet or exceed your goal. We're also a global platform, and the way that we promote is based on merit. So based on the activity of your campaign, that's how you get more visibility on our front page, on our newsletter, on our social media. It's not by knowing me, it's not by knowing somebody at the company, it's based on your good work. And like Julian mentioned, I just want to make it clear that crowdfunding is just like any other fundraising. It's work. On any platform, there aren't elves that are just you're going to go to sleep, or you're going to wake up and your campaign is going to be 100% full. And what we talk about a lot is that you receive typically your first 30% of funding from your friends and family, from people within 1 degree of touch. And so that's important to keep in mind, because you want to get that momentum fast. And so you also want to build a team around your campaign. We found that campaigns with a team raise 80% more than campaigns that don't. If you have a video, you raise 114% more money than those who don't. And it's people really, and also be proactive during your campaign. Have a communication plan ahead of time for during, before, and after, because campaigns 5 updates is 2 times the amount of money. And also, there's lots of other tricks and tips, and you can review them all on Indiegogo.com. We are very committed to education, so there's an insights and a help and an FAQ section where there's a lot more best practices. And we are extremely committed to helping social innovators like yourself get the support and funding you need. And personally, I'm looking forward to working with you to transform your ideas into reality and help to change the world. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kate. Very much appreciated. I'll just do a quick reminder for folks that we are currently fielding questions. Hashtag GFA crowdfund and business at greenforall.org. And now I would like to introduce our second presenter today. Justin Renfro started his career at LinkedIn. After their IPO, he decided to take some time off to travel, and then he ended up doing an internship with Kiva's new pilot program, Kiva Zip, which is what he's doing, which is what he'll be telling us about today. He's since been hired on to lead their U.S. expansion effort, and he's responsible for finding entrepreneurs that can benefit from the Kiva Zip program, and he's partnering with organizations that support these entrepreneurs. Justin has helped the program grow from 25 borrowers to over 200 in the past 9 months alone. So please give a round of applause virtually for Justin Renfro.
Thank you, Julian. It's a pleasure to be invited to this panel. Really excited to talk to you guys about Kiva Zip and see if we might be a great fit for you. I guess to just start off, all of these crowdfunding platforms are awesome resources. I think that it's important to note that certain entrepreneurs and small business owners are better fits for different types of platforms. And I think that that's it's really important for you to do your research and really figure out what platform is best for you and what's the best fit for your business. To tell you a little bit about what we're doing with Kiva and Kiva Zip, Kiva is we're an international nonprofit, so we've been around since 2005. I think we were the pioneer in the idea of crowdfunding. Over the past 7 years, we've expanded to 67 countries. We've made over 1 million loans to entrepreneurs around the world, and our big focus has been international. So we've built our reputation in Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, developing countries, and supporting entrepreneurs that are in very remote areas of the world. And what we are is we're a platform that connects the crowd, people like me and you who want to give $25, $50, $100 to an entrepreneur somewhere. And what's different about Kiva as compared to a platform like Indiegogo, for example, is where on Indiegogo you have gifts and incentives for contributing to a project. On Kiva Zip, they're strictly loans. So we have 0% interest loans. So you're not getting anything in return for contributing to a project. Rather, you're just getting the money back. And what's unique about that is you're able to either take it out and relend it to another entrepreneur, or you can take it back to your bank account. So I think that that's what's unique about Kiva as compared to a lot of the different crowdfunding platforms. In the way Kiva operates is we partner with microfinance institutions. This is kiva.org. Microfinance institutions, these are traditional lenders in remote rural areas around the world. And these microfinance institutions actually are the financial intermediary. They're the ones that distribute and collect the loans. Kiva Zip is different because we use technology to play the role of the financial intermediary. So in the US, that's through PayPal. We use PayPal to facilitate the loans, to distribute and collect. And as a result, we're able to offer a true 0% interest rate and create a more direct connection between the crowd of lenders and the entrepreneurs. And something that Kate spoke a lot about was the value of the crowd to your business. These are potential customers. These are brand ambassadors. These are people that are going to tell their friends and family and blast it out to their network. And I think that's going to be a common theme that you hear with everyone on the panel and their platform is these connections are really, really valuable. And on Kiva Zip, I think that we've seen so many interesting use cases of how borrowers have benefited from getting connected with this community of hundreds of lenders. In terms of the specifics of the program, what's different about Kiva as compared to other platforms is you actually need to be endorsed by someone that we call a trustee. A trustee is an organization or an individual that will vouch for your personality, your character, your trustworthiness, and your business. You need to be endorsed to be able to participate in our program. And we've got trustees across the country, over 200 trustees. And these are people, friends, mentors. These are organizations like Green for All, or small business development centers, or women's business centers, or startup incubators, or shared workspaces. We want to partner with these trustees because since this is a loan that with the expectation that you're going to repay the loan, we want to make sure that the entrepreneurs that come to us are, I guess, vetted by an institution that knows you personally and can vouch for your personality and character. And it's through this network of trustees that we've been able to grow the program. We're currently in 37 states. We've made over 200 loans since we started at the beginning of last year. And we're really looking for, I think that the ideal business that comes to Kiva Zip is a small businesses, mom and pop shops, Etsy, you know, a lot of businesses on Etsy, people working out of their living rooms and out of their garages, people that just need a small amount of capital to just get started. So our loans are actually capped at $5,000. So you start out at a $5,000 loan, and I think that naturally, I guess, attracts a certain type of business, one that doesn't need a ton of capital to help them grow or expand, but rather need a small amount that could be funded by the crowd, and then after you repay that $5,000, you can go to 10, and then 20, and then 50. So it's definitely a start small and grow mentality. So I think that that's especially unique to the Kiva Zip platform. To participate, it's really easy. Just go to our website. There should be a tab, Borrowers, and you'll be able to speak with one of our representatives who will help you find a trustee and get the process going. So thank you again for inviting me on the panel. Hopefully we'll hear from you soon. More than anything, I'd encourage you to make a loan. It's zip.kiva.org. We've got about 45 businesses currently fundraising right now here in the States. So I encourage you to go make a loan. And if you're interested in pursuing Kiva Zip for your business, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Justin. And I just want to let folks know we are getting a bunch of great questions coming in, and we will have ample time to get to those. Hopefully we'll get to, we'll get to as many as we can. But we are getting them, just so you know. The radio silence doesn't mean we don't care. So we are going to get to our last live panelist, and then we have a short video presentation as well that we'll talk about in a minute. So I would like to introduce, joining us from IOB.org, IOBY.org, stands for In Our Backyard. I'd like to introduce Erin Barnes. She's the co-founder and executive director of IOB.org. She comes to this work with a background in journalism. She worked for a number of years at Men's Journal magazine as their environmental editor. She's contributed to Al Gore's book, Our Choice. She's conducted field research on socioeconomic values of water in Nicaragua and the Amazon, and worked as a community organizer at Save Our Wild Salmon Coalition. I can get down with that. And so Erin will be telling us about IOB, IOB.org, which started in New York and is now expanding. The work of IOB has actually received a number of accolades recently. The Jane Jacobs Medalist was awarded to them by the Rockefeller Foundation just last year. They won the Living City Award for Municipal Arts Society of New York City in 2011, and they were finalists for a Webby, for the 16th annual Webby. So Erin Barnes, take it away.
Thanks, Julian. So my name's Erin Barnes. And for those of you who don't know, IOB's name actually comes from the opposite of the word NIMBY. We're a place for people who want to say, yes, this is something positive that I want in my own neighborhood. So we designed IOB specifically to support citizen-led, neighbor-funded projects that make urban neighborhoods stronger and more sustainable. We call IOB a crowd resourcing platform, actually, blending the concepts of crowdfunding and resource organizing. So as you know by now, crowdfunding refers to the pooling of lots of small donations online to a single cause or organization. And resource organizing refers to entrusting the people you serve with the financial sustainability of your organization. So with IOB, people can get more than just money. Anyone with a good idea for their community can raise tax-deductible donations, recruit local volunteers, and share ideas with a like-minded community. In addition, IOB has some pretty specific resources that we provide. So if you need it, IOB can act as your fiscal sponsor, which means that you can raise tax-deductible donations without needing to be a 501c3 nonprofit of your own. Second, we raise money for match campaigns so that you can raise money faster. And third, we provide technical assistance so that if you have any questions about your fundraising campaign, all you have to do is pick up the phone and we'll be right there. And then finally, for those people who want it, we're more than happy to make introductions to decision makers and others who might be able to help you get your project done in your community. Anybody can use IOB, but we're specifically designed for people who are starting new initiatives or programs, or who have volunteer needs or a volunteer run, and for anyone who wants to plug their work into a larger network of like-minded people working to make positive change in urban neighborhoods. We welcome new projects from rural and suburban areas too. It's totally fine. But we work specifically in dense urban areas and have offices in Brooklyn and Miami right now. To qualify for IOB, your project has to just be good for the community and good for the environment. It can be from any place across the U.S. And because IOB is usually about addressing local issues, oftentimes the issues are sort of interwoven. So a project that teaches free bilingual belly dancing for low-income women in northern Manhattan parks is as much about social justice, public health, as it is about park stewardship. So typical projects on IOB are urban greening projects like starting farms or gardens in vacant lots. There's a lot of food education and food justice projects. There's a lot of tactical urbanism projects like closing down a street temporarily to cars and opening it up to be a playground. And we're seeing a lot of new cooperatives and sharing economy projects, like starting worker-owned cooperatives for house cleaning and landscaping workers. On IOB, the people donating to your project are, much like Julian said, they're going to be a lot of people that you know. 90% of people who give to projects on IOB actually live in the community where the project is taking place. And on average, IOB project leaders know already 60% of the people donating to their projects, and about 40% of them come from the larger IOB community. The large majority of people using IOB are under 35 and live in dense urban areas. The most successful project on IOB raised $6,500 in 35 minutes. The reason that they were really successful was three clear reasons. The first was that they took advantage of one of IOB's match campaigns. The second was that they had a great team of fundraisers. They had 6 people total all working together, and they created a plan that used email and Facebook only, and they had a direct plan for how they were going to hit every single one of their potential donors. And then the third thing is they made their fundraising deadline really clear. So a lot of people are hesitant to push people to know that they have a deadline, but that's the fastest way to make sure that your funding actually comes in. We spent a lot of time with that group planning their fundraising campaign in advance of their launch, and that's something that we do on a regular basis. We really want to make sure that people who are doing great work in their communities get the funding they need. So in addition to having one-on-one technical assistance available, you can also sign up for our signature crowdfunding webinar every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's called Fast Cash, and you can sign up for it at iob.org/idea. I think that some of the most common pitfalls of projects are probably two things. The first is when a project leader is sort of going at their project alone. Like Kate said, we've seen a lot more successful projects when they're working in great teams. And I think also that has to do with basically that projects are trying to do two things at once. They're trying to start a new project and also fundraise for it. And hitting a hurdle when you're working on your alone can make it a lot harder. When you're working with IAOB, there is a flexible finish policy, so that if you are hitting up your deadline and you have a volunteer work day to start breaking ground in your community garden, and you've only raised 2/3 of where you need to go, you can revise your budget and submit it to IAOB, and we'll disperse the funds that you've raised so far. And then, so I just wanted to close by sharing a story of one of the coolest projects that I've seen on IAOB. It's called VeloCity Bike Explorations, and it was started by 3 women, Samalise, Karen, and Naomi. The 3 of them met in an urban planning master's program. And it was there that they learned that they were the only 3 women of color in the program, and that they knew very few other women of color in urban planning and design. So they started VeloCity with the explicit mission of bringing more people from underserved communities into the field of urban planning and design, so that they would be better able to understand how to participate in the public processes that affected their neighborhoods. So they started a summer program called Bike Explorations, which is an 8-week curriculum that takes underserved youth from New York City out on bike rides and teaches them college-level urban planning curriculum on 2 wheels. And the first rides went through Chinatown, and then they moved into the South Bronx. And the second year they raised 400% more than they did the first year. So that's about it. Any questions, or if you're interested in trying out IAOB, just go to iob.org/idea. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Erin. Really awesome. So I'll mention again, we are still accepting questions. We've got a bunch of great ones that have come in that we will get to in about 9 or 10 minutes. You can send questions to #GFA Crowdfund, or you can email them to business@greenforall.org. I'll take a quick moment to just acknowledge and thank the other 2 people on our team here at Green for All that are helping to make this happen. The indomitable Maritza Martinez is the leader, is the head of our Green for All Fellowship Program, which I encourage you to look into. It's an incredible fellowship of community folks around the country who are leading their communities towards more prosperous, inclusive economies, and protecting their environment. Stumbling through that a little bit. Thank you, Maritza, for all your work today. And we're also joined, that little person that you can't see down there is Kari Mosley, who's going to join us now. Wow, not true. Kari Dvorak-Yule. Kari Mosley is another friend of mine. Kari Dvorak-Yule is the head of our business engagement work at Green for All. He can probably tell us a little bit about that, and is going to introduce our final presentation today, which is brought to us by the wonders of technology. It will be Jenny Casson, who is leading an effort called Cutting Edge Capital. And so Kari's just going to take a quick minute to explain to us what that is, and then we'll have a short presentation from Jenny that she recorded prior to this, and then we will get to your questions.
Thank you very much, Julian.
Yeah, no problem.
It's all good. So as Julian mentioned, I work at Green for All. I'm the Senior Associate for our Business Accelerator programs. That is a coaching and mentoring program for green entrepreneurs, and we also run a series of national business academies. Please send me an email if you want some more information about either of those. Like Julian said, our last presenter couldn't be here live with us today, but we really wanted to share her information with you, and so we pre-recorded a short presentation on direct public offerings. Jenny Casson is an amazingly talented attorney and serial entrepreneur. She's the CEO of Cutting Edge Capital, a consulting firm that helps small businesses raise community capital and pioneer tools for a more inclusive, value-driven economy. She's also an attorney at Kadovich and Kasson Law Group, a law firm that serves social enterprises. She's the president of Community Ventures, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting economic and social development of communities. And finally, she co-founded Sustainable Economies Law Center, a nonprofit that provides legal information to support sustainable economies. It's a long repertoire, and we're happy to share this little video with you today.
And I'm an attorney, so when I look at raising money for businesses, I look at it from a legal perspective. There are actually quite a lot of laws that govern capital raising for business. Why is it so hard for small local independent businesses to raise capital? I would argue that one of the main reasons is the very complicated set of state and federal securities laws that govern the ability to raise capital. So what exactly is a security? Really, it's any time you offer an investment opportunity to potential investors. So you may be offering equity in your company, you may be offering the opportunity to lend you money, you may even just be saying, give me $900 now and I'll give you $1,000 in a year. Any of these things are considered a security. So the minute you're offering a security, you are subject to a very complicated set of regulations. And you can get into trouble with both the federal regulators, the Securities and Exchange Commission, as well as state level regulators in every state where you're offering your security. So it's a really good idea to know about the securities law before you try to get investors for your company. Because of the laws that make it so complicated to legally be able to offer an investment in your company, there's a big divide in our economy. Even though half of our economy is made up of small independent businesses, almost all of our money is invested only in giant multinational publicly traded companies. And that's because they can afford the legal fees and other costs required to go through all of the legal requirements that make it possible for them to sell their securities to the public. That's what we mean when we say an IPO, going public. You go through a very, very onerous process where you register your offering and then it's legal to offer your securities to the public. Otherwise, it's generally very difficult to offer your securities to anyone but a very small group of people called accredited investors. So if you can't afford the process to do a full registration of your securities offering, you can use an exemption to that requirement. But usually, if you're going to use an exemption, you can only make your offering privately and only to wealthy people, accredited investors. The definition of an accredited investor is someone who has at least $1 million in net worth or $200,000 in annual income, or if it's a company, at least $5 million in assets. Now, this chart shows how many companies are actually funded by accredited investors, also known as VCs and angels. It's a very, very tiny percentage. So going after those investors can be quite challenging. But the good news is that I've devoted myself to finding ways for companies to be able to access the larger pool of investors that are out there. So there are some ways to do that. One, as I already said, is to do an IPO, but of course that is a very expensive process, like I said. There's also a new law that will be going into effect probably sometime this year that will be usable for people to be able to sell securities to the crowd. And then there's also a way to do it legally now that I'll talk about. So first I'll talk about this new law that went into effect last April called the Crowdfund Act, which is part of the Jobs Act. It all started back in 2010. A nonprofit that I'm affiliated with called Sustainable Economies Law Center submitted a request for rulemaking to the SEC to ask for an exemption for securities offerings of up to $100. So what we said is, if people are only putting in up to $100 each, they shouldn't have to go through this very onerous registration process. We didn't get a lot of response from the SEC, but we did get a lot of letters of support up on their website. And then, amazingly enough, we did get some, the word got out and there was political support both from the President and Congress. a version of a law that created an exemption for small offerings where each investor was only putting in a small amount was passed by Congress, the House, on November 3rd, 2011, 345 to 10. And then the final version was signed by the president in April of last year, 2012. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite as friendly as we hoped it would be. There are some requirements in there that will be a little bit difficult to comply with, and it still hasn't gone into effect, so we still don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But basically, under this new law, you will be able to raise up to $1 million as long as each investor doesn't put in more than 5% of his or her annual income or net worth. The offerings will have to go through an intermediary, so you won't be able to go out and talk about it yourself. You'll have to go through a registered intermediary. Now, there is a way to raise money from the crowd now, and we call it a direct public offering. They have been going on for a while now, and a lot of people don't know about them, but it is actually possible to raise money from the crowd and not have to do the full federal registration that happens in an IPO. The way it works is you find a federal exemption that applies to your situation. So a couple of examples could be if your business is focused within a single state, or if you're only raising up to $1 million, you can actually take advantage of an exemption from the federal registration requirements, and then you just need to do state level registration. So in a direct public offering, generally you'll be offering securities to the public in a few states, 1 or 2 or 3 states. And you can make your offering to the public, and you don't have to worry about whether your investors are accredited or not. And you can also offer directly to the public, so you can go out and market your own investment opportunity. These are some examples of businesses that have done direct public offerings. Each one structured their offering in a way that made sense for their business. So for example, Quimper Mercantile is a retail business in Port Townsend, Washington that sold $100 shares of common stock to their community, and they have over 1,000 investors, and they were able to open their store. Farm Fresh to You is a business in California that was already in existence and decided to raise money from their customers in the form of loans, and the interest is actually paid back in credits towards organic produce instead of cash. And there's many, many other examples of creative kinds of offerings you can make. People's Community Market is another client of ours. They're selling non-voting preferred stock, but along with your stock you also get a store discount. There's lots of advantages to using the direct public offering model to raise money. Of course, you do have to do the state level registration, which takes some effort. You have to submit something to the state, and often they'll have some questions, and you'll have to satisfy them that you're providing sufficient information to your potential investors. But once you get the okay from the state, you can go out and offer your investments to the public. You can advertise on your website, on social media. You can do press releases, etc. You set the terms of the deal so you can stay in control of your company. And of course, the fact that you can go out to everyone and not just focus on wealthy investors increases your pool of potential investors by a huge amount. Direct public offerings actually had a period of popularity back in the 90s, and then not many happened for a while, but they're starting to see a resurgence, and we're really hoping that as they start to grow and more public offerings happen, people will start to invest some of their money in their own communities instead of Wall Street, and we'll really start to see a flow of money out of Wall Street and into our community businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kari, and thank you, Jenny, for that. We just got this question coming in, and it's great because I was planning on answering it. Am I up? Oh, I'm good. So you're watching a YouTube. This video will be available. It will be recorded and available to you. So if you RSVP'd, which you did, if you're on this call, then we will send you a recording of this so you can refer to whatever sections you want to refer to. So that's one thing. The other thing that I want to mention before we get to our questions is that we have a second, this is a two-part series for this first part. Obviously, we're featuring our incredible panel here who are really leaders in the sector, have innovative models that might be perfect for you. So thank you again to them for that. The next round of this will be the other group of experts, which are people that have utilized some of these platforms in their to try to go after their dream and make their vision a reality. So we have a bunch of folks from throughout our networks who have had campaigns, some of them which they've reached their goals, other of which they haven't, and we'll get to hear directly from them about some of the challenges they had, what worked, what didn't, some of the experimentation that they did to really figure out how to be successful. So we'll send you more information, but I'll let you know right now that will take place on May 7th, which is a Tuesday. So Tuesday, May 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Once again, we will probably use a similar format to this, but we'll get you all of that information. So please join us for round two, roundtable of the other group of experts, the folks that have utilized this. So now I would like to get to some of the questions, and I'll let you know one more time, hashtag GFA Crowdfund. You can send your questions there. We've gotten a number over Twitter, or you can send them to business@greenforall.org. Some of these questions are for specific panelists. A number of them, I think everyone might have something to say about it. Looks like we don't have Erin, is that right?
She's back.
She's back, and she's back. Okay, so I will start with the basic one, and this is a question that maybe we'll just start with Kate, and we can just go down Kate, Justin, and then Erin, if you guys have something to say about this. The question is very simple. How do you pick the right amount for your campaign?
So what we recommend at Indiegogo is, I mentioned that there's that 30% rule where you want to raise the first 30% from your friends and family, from people within 1 degree of trust. And so when you're setting your goal, you want to make sure that it's something that's achievable. And on Indiegogo, at least, I know that you can always go above and beyond your goal. It's just a matter of reaching it. And so really look at your audience. Ask, like, can we is this a reasonable goal? Do I think that and gut check it? And so if you're like, we need to raise $200,000, look at your audience, look at what you have at your disposal. And one thing that I'll mention, we found that people are paying for one of three reasons. First, the person, because there's a personal connection. This is the 30% rule. 2, because whatever you're offering in exchange for a contribution, the perk, that's what they respond to. Or 3, because of the pride and participation. And so when you're setting your goal, just make sure that, one, all of those components are strong, and also that your community really wants it, because at the end of it, it will be somewhat of market validation for what you've built.
Great. Justin, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say Keep a Zip's a little bit different. Since our loans are capped at $5,000, we've had 98% of the businesses that have come to Keep a Zip fully fund. So obviously there's, I think with a $5,000 loan, I think that you fundraise much quicker when you have a very articulate description of what you're going to use the loan for. How is it going to impact your business? What specifically do you need, and how are you going to use that money? I think that that's super important, and the more articulate and the more specific you are, the faster you'll fundraise.
Right. Erin, any thoughts?
The only thing that I would add is that I think that you should consider any crowdfunding campaign the same way you would any other development activity. So you want to make sure that you're going into it with a plan for how you're going to raise the funding, knowing who your target donors are, thinking about the ways that you're going to communicate with them, and then base your goal on all of those same strategies you'd use, whether you were planning an event or an end-of-the-year campaign or any other type of fundraising activity.
Right. Okay, cool. All right, so for question number 2, it's sort of the basics in terms of strategy. So we had a question around asking if there's any strategy around resources, recommendations for ideal length of campaigns, And social media marketing, we all know that the social media marketing element of it is very important. There was a question around the frequency of that. How much is too much? How little is too little? So any thoughts around that? And also, sorry, related to that. So ideal length of campaign, social media marketing frequency, and then just the range of donations. What are you seeing as the sort of the range of the standard donations? So when people are setting those bullets of what people can give, what are the range of those donations, or the sort of the most common donation size?
So
hopefully
I'll
that
just
made
start.
some sort of sense.
On Indiegogo, we found that for successful campaigns, typically people reach their goal on day 37 of a 45-day campaign. Social media, we found that updating every 1 to 5 days, that is helpful for your campaign to help show momentum. And then I forgot what was the last question?
Oh, just the range of donations.
Range of donations. And so on Indiegogo, we found that the $25 perk and the $100 perk are the two most popular perks, and that our average contribution is $75.
Cool.
On Keep It
I can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Justin.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Our average contribution is roughly $50, and I think on Keep It Zip, the actual length of the fundraiser isn't as relevant. You have 90 days to fundraise. Most businesses fundraise between 4 and 5 weeks. But it's really important to stay very engaged, to communicate with the people backing your project, and share updates, and just communicate as often as you can, because that really helps in the fundraising component of I'm sure all three of ours.
Okay. Aaron?
I can answer the questions in maybe a different order. So on IOB, the average donation is $35, but we see donations up to $3,000. We don't have a rewards-based program, so there's not a set sort of target dollar amount. It's whatever you sort of ask people up for. And then we recommend campaigns of 6 weeks in length, although you have 90 days to complete it. And then the final thing on social media, I think that those questions are up to you and your base. If you're already accustomed to talking to your base through some sort of social channel, then you should continue to do that. We really feel like Facebook and Twitter are really great communication and engagement tools, but not very good asking tools. So we think that they're great ways for you to keep your base engaged in your campaign, and share more information about it, and share more information about why they might want to give to it, but not necessarily as great tools to make direct asks.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. I would add to that really quickly. In my experience, I think you're really right about that, Aaron. And I would say, what we learned, and Kate mentioned this. I think first off, it's work. Like these things are not magic. Anything. They're not magic. They take work. And so it's great to what we found out, and the one that I did was really the follow-up, personal follow-up, phone calls, texts, Facebook, but a Facebook message, not like something on their wall. Those are the and emails. Those are the types of things that we really got results. When somebody sort of gets back to you with a concrete yes or no, that's when we got results. So I would just add that. Okay, so let's see. A couple questions that are related. I guess there's actually one question. How do you engage people in your community in donating when they're outside of your direct network? The other part that was related to that is figuring out your target donor. So if you are not connected, like in community, sort of they're not part of your traditional network, how do you find and connect to the folks with money who might be interested in what you're doing? Are there any strategies to reach outside of your network, your social network? And Aaron, since you're up, why don't we start with you, and then we'll go to Justin and then Kate.
Okay. So I think first I want to sort of dispel the myth that you have to find people with money in order to fund your campaign. In the U.S., most charitable giving is done by people who are actually regular people like me and you, who aren't extraordinarily wealthy by any means. It's the largest portion of all funding, and they also give the largest percentage of their total income to charitable causes. So you don't actually need to find anyone wealthy who you don't already know. But if you're trying to reach out to get donors from outside of your circle, I think building a great fundraising team where you have slightly overlapping but different social networks among the people on your fundraising team can be a great strategy. Get some people who will be able to pull in their community into your fundraising campaign and who have great existing cheerleaders who are going to be able to share stories from your projects out to their communities.
I agree with Aaron.
Thanks, Justin.
You're welcome.
And I agree with Aaron as well. One thing that I would just add to it, what we suggest is to find people who are the most passionate about what you're doing and then divvy them up into 3 buckets. So the first bucket are people. Which people are most invested in you? So those would be more influencers and people who are most passionate about what you're building perhaps they're really closely related. And then 2 would be bloggers and people in that sphere, like bloggers, media, who from that world would be interested. And then 3, what are like-minded organizations that would be interested in helping to spread your message? Because at the end of the day, this is a piece of marketing collateral that you're also building for your business. And so how to expand your reach to make it even more impactful.
Cool. Okay. All right, great. So just a couple more quick questions. One is for Justin specifically. One is just confirming Kiva Zip is operating in the U.S. That's the idea. Kiva does international work. Kiva Zip does work in the U.S. Is that right?
Kind of.
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, Kiva Zip has a specific focus on the U.S. as well as in Kenya. That's our 2 pilot areas. Kiva also operates in the U.S. through traditional microfinance institutions. So we have partnerships with Axion and Opportunity Fund and Michigan Core, but Kiva Zip is specifically focused on the U.S., whereas Kiva has more of an international reputation.
Great. Thank you for clarifying. And there was one more question here that I'm going to send to you directly, Justin, offline about social impact bonds. But for the sake of time, we'll just let you connect with them directly. So whoever sent that question, thank you, and we will get it answered. The last question I'm going to just sort of put together. Somebody had a question around just clarifying which opportunities are available for 501c4 nonprofits. And then also just somebody had a general question about the tax implications for crowdfunding. So why don't we start with you, Justin, and then we'll go to Aaron, and then we'll end with Kate.
Sure. We make loans to organizations across the board. Social businesses do particularly well because our lenders are focused on social good. That's what they're really interested in. So those businesses do extremely well. The second question. What was your second question?
The second question is tax implications.
Tax implications. This is a loan, so you cannot write it off. You will get repaid back. If you want to donate to Kiva, you can write that off. But since it is a loan, you can't report that.
Right. Thank you. All right, Aaron, and we have just a couple minutes, so.
Sure. So IOB supports projects that come from any individual or organization. The only requirement is that the project itself has to benefit the public. So if you're a C4 but doing C3 work, you should just reach out and talk to us.
Right. Cool.
I need to go. I'm not sure how 501c4s are different from 501c3s. But on 501c3s, through First Giving, we're able to endorse, First Giving sends out tax-deductible receipts through our platform. So a 501c3 can start a campaign. As for tax implications, all these campaigns are to talk to your tax professional.
Good answer.
Hey, Julian, can I add one thing? Sorry. So I said this earlier, but IOB can act as a fiscal sponsor for projects. So if you're not a 501c3, you can still receive tax-deductible donations through IOB. You just have to reach out.
That's great. That's great information. Cool. All right. So we are just about out of time. In fact, we are out of time. One more time, I want to give a huge round of applause and thank you to our panelists, Kate Drain from Indiegogo, Justin Renfro from Keep a Zip, and Aaron Barnes, the co-founder and executive director of IOB.org. You guys were tremendous. Also, thank you to Jenny Caston from Cutting Edge Capital. We will send everybody the recording of this. If we didn't get your question, our apologies, and we will try to get it answered offline. And finally, May 7th at 10 a.m., that's a Tuesday, we will have round 2 where we will have a round table with folks who have used these platforms and get to hear and learn from their experience. Thank you all so much for visiting us today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bill, yo.